they exercise the intellectual violence, which is I've got the information and I'm not going to share it.
Yeah.
So therefore, I will always be the hero.
And they're just like, it's all mine.
It's kind of a little bit of a power trip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they use that intellectual, what did you call that?
Intellectual violence.
What's that?
So intellectual violence, it's a anti-pattern. So basically, if you have somebody that wants to control the room or control the conversation, it may get to a certain point and it's like, they're uncomfortable being questioned. So they kind of overwhelm the conversation with things that nobody else has any
flux
information.
capacitor's broken.
Exactly. And all of a sudden it just shuts the debate down, shuts the conversation down, and they win.
Hey, welcome back to the Agile Couple. I'm Leanne McManus with my partner here, Kevin McManus. And we're going to do a fun, quick little episode today talking about why self-promoting heroes create unhealthy teams. So to start this off, Kevin, tell us, what is your experience with working with a hero in the workplace?
Yeah. So the situation that comes to mind for me is kind of the person that anytime that you have a problem, it's like they're the person either based on the fact that they have longevity, they've been there the longest, or they've got some unique knowledge about the problem. They're the ones that are always getting called up in order to fix a problem. So they're always the hero.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very good. So because as you were telling that, I have other experiences with heroes. So I think we should identify and break down, like when we say hero, what does that look like on a team? So what I would call yours is a fiefdom or knowledge lord. Would that make sense for that?
Absolutely.
Because they might be ornery about it, but they might not be. It might just be the way the culture is.
It could be a culture, absolutely.
But yours is more of like that person kind of, what were some of the things that would show up with that person?
Yeah. I mean, you can see it in both, there's kind of a general, from a cultural standpoint, they're always the go-to. And then there are others that they exercise the intellectual violence, which is I've got the information and I'm not going to share it.
Yeah.
So therefore, I will always be the hero.
And they're just like, it's all mine.
Yeah.
Like, that's when I say fiefdom, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a power trip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they use that intellectual, what did you call that?
Intellectual violence.
What's that?
So intellectual violence, it's a anti-pattern. So basically, if you have somebody that wants to control the room or control the conversation, it may get to a certain point and it's like, they're uncomfortable being questioned. So they kind of overwhelm the conversation with things that nobody else has any
flux
information.
capacitor's broken.
Exactly. And all of a sudden it just shuts the debate down, shuts the conversation down, and they win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one type of hero.
Yep.
Okay. The other one that I've had the experience with, and we just sort of gave them our own names, right? Is what we would call the misguided savior. And sometimes this is an overconfident person. I've seen where there's a person that I've worked with, multiple people, but one person in particular that year after year after year, I've seen this happen. It's like they're overconfident. They want to come in and be like oh, look at all the things I did. And don't worry, I got that. Don't worry, I'll do that for free. Don't worry, like all of these things that come out. Their work isn't necessarily the best work, but they're so overconfident and they love being patted on the head and being the one that's like, oh, that person's so great. They're always willing to help. But for the rest of the team, it's like you just created a mess that we all have to go clean up.
Right.
Right. And that's a repeating pattern. That's not been a fun experience.
Yeah.
So that hero, not my favorite. Now there's a third one. Do you remember what it's called?
The third one. Oh, I don't.
That's okay. The reluctant hero.
The reluctant, yes.
Now what's that one?
So that's usually somebody that feels like they have to step into the gap because nobody else is stepping up.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you'll have a team that for whatever reason, they may not have the capacity, they may not have the knowledge, they may not have the courage to step up. So you're going to have somebody that kind of steps in and takes control reluctantly. Yeah. It's not something that they enjoy doing, but they also recognize that in order to move forward, We got to get
somebody's got to take control
Exactly.
of this boat, right?
Yep.
Yeah, really good. So if we were to look at those three, and there's probably more hero scenarios that people have, but those are the three that we've had direct experience with. What would you say are some of the consistent issues you see between all three of those hero themes?
The biggest thing to me is their liability.
Yeah.
And oftentimes where you hear, when you hear the word hero, you think of, oh, it's magnificent. It's an asset.
Yeah.
But in an environment where you're dependent upon the team, those heroes are actually kind of that same thing. It's an anti-pattern.
Yeah.
And, the question is, okay, when that person is no longer there and they're the ones who are always the go-to, who's going to pick up the slack?
Or when something happens.
Or when
to
something
somebody,
happens. Absolutely.
right? Or they leave.
Yeah. They find a better opportunity, or it's the typical, as a leader, it's
Yeah.
what happens if this person wins the lottery or
Yeah.
this person gets hit by the bus, however you want to phrase it. It's like, what are you doing to build that redundancy, into your team?
Yeah. And so liability is one, because I'm thinking through a bunch of things and I'm like, they don't always want to be that role. Sometimes they do. Sometimes the first two scenarios, they need something fed in themselves.
Yeah.
One of the consistent issues I see is that it causes friction amongst the other team members.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. Actually, all three of those, I think, can cause friction across the team. So clearly the intellectual sabotage or, the just, I know more and I'm building a fiefdom and whatever. I even the longevity thing.
But sometimes even the fiefdom is a single fiefdom.
It is,
Single
yes.
member.
Yes. And it's like, even in the days when I first started working, you had the whole knowledge hoarder thing, which is really what this is. It's more than a knowledge hoarder because you're having a power trip with it. Right. To be that person that has to come in, like, we can't make a decision until we ask this person X because they're the one that knows. It's not really true. They don't do all the parts, but they've convinced people of this. But it is hoarding of the knowledge. And I think when I first started working, I remember working with some of those people, and I'm the disruptor always, and I'll be, but why are we doing that? Right, that whole thing, and they do not like that. Why are you questioning my fiefdom and my knowledge or whatever? But the friction causing, definitely with the first one, because I know the type of people that are like that who you've worked with. But what kind of things would show up on the team working with somebody like that?
Well, it's like disengagement. It's like, why am I even going to put forth the effort when, this person's always going to be the one that's getting I don't want to call plum assignments, but they're the ones that are always part of the decision.
They get the pick of the litter though, really, right? With that type of thing.
They do. And what it does is it suppresses everybody else's, ability to contribute.
Yeah.
Because if there's only one person that they're always going to, then why should I stick my neck out and have an opinion?
I also think, so we've dealt with some other people kind of in this role, and they get the ear of whoever the decision maker is, not because they have the best options or the best performance or any of those things, but because they've built this up.
Yeah.
So other good ideas go away, which causes friction on the team. Nobody else is being listened to, which is really frustrating when you're like, I actually have the sound, or we together have a sound solution.
Right.
You're not even being heard, that type of thing, right? So now I have to work on bad quality stuff because this salesperson has convinced you otherwise or whatever, right? It's like the cleaning up, like clean up on aisle 3. We're all cleaning up the mess. That's the other thing that we've seen is because that person's overconfident or has sold this thing or has a fiefdom so big that they're doing so many things that they can't get to, maybe the thing that they've sold that they could do, that they're the decision maker on, right? So it's like somebody's got to do the work now that you just made the decision on this or whatever. So I think the friction shows up on all of those. The friction shows up because I think I've been definitely the reluctant hero many times, and it's not necessarily intentional, but once you're in it, you're kind of in it too. And so then it's like, well, somebody else needs to step up, but either the team is young or they don't know, whatever the scenario is. How do you manage that? Well, you can cause friction on the team because maybe the actual team that should be doing it doesn't feel like they can step up and do it. And maybe leadership wants them to step up and do it, but it's like, it's a weird time thing.
Yeah. And I think part of it too, that is another factor or contributing factor is the culture itself. If you have a situation or a culture where, you're not able to contribute and there's always this, it's kind of the status quo.
Yeah.
right? You're never bringing new ideas
Right.
into the mix. And then that, from an organizational standpoint, that puts the organization in a liability situation because all of your thought process is running through the same choke point.
Well, it's really ownership. I mean, I know when I've been in that reluctant thing, it's an ownership thing for me. I didn't ask for it, but however you get there, it is. So then it's like other people need to have ownership at the end of the day. I think that's it. It needs to be a team ownership,
Absolutely.
which is part of the problem.
Yep.
Let's see. We also had, which is sort of what we just talked about, that it causes others who should step up then don't. So the longer that you're in that hero mode, whoever should be doing it is going to continue to not, for whatever the other obvious reasons we just talked about.
Yeah.
And then others can't fix the issue. So you had that idea. So what did you mean by that?
That they can't fix the
Yeah.
issue?
So that means others don't have the opportunity to fix. They don't
right.
have the muscle memory to know how to do it. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So basically, if they're never pushed out of what they know, there's no growth, right? And if they're not able to experience, new experiences, they become stale. Right?
Well, they're probably disengaged from it thing too. And I think it ties to the ownership thing. So if it's like, well, so-and-so's got it and whatever, then I'm just going to be on whatever. The heartbeat's there, but that's it.
There's no incentive to do anything beyond that.
Yeah. And then I had conditioning others to think this way. And you had reminded me of a story a long time ago. I have a cousin who was in real estate broker, fantastic, right, in the Phoenix area. And I saw her, I went to visit her. This was a long time ago, 10 years ago, more than that probably. But I was like waiting for her to go do something and she had to take a call. And she said, she got a call and she came over and she's like, it's another multi-million-dollar deal. And I was like, because she was off that day because we were going to go do stuff. And actually she was in Seattle at the time. But I said, well, how come somebody else in your office isn't doing it? And she said, well, they can. But they think of me as a multi-million-dollar salesperson. They could totally do it, but their mindset is that. Because she'd always been assuming that she was the hero for those big ones, or hero in we've got somebody with a lot of money and we're kind of scared or whatever. We have a mindset that doesn't align. They don't do it. They're never going to assume that role as long as somebody else is the hero.
Right.
Instead of, let's build a team of heroes. Right? Yeah. Okay. So is there anything else you want to say before? I think we're kind of covered what we want to, but any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from a leadership perspective is how do you mitigate that liability? And that requires you to be focusing on what is going to be creating a healthy team, not a healthy individual.
Right.
Because people retire, people go on to different jobs, a whole plethora of different reasons. And like you said, you really should be building up that collective heroism. As opposed to, having that focused on an individual. You need to mitigate the liability and build up the asset of the team.
Well, and have awareness for watching these norms as they show up,
absolutely.
Right? Because you might be asking questions of like, why is it always Joey? That's why Joey again? Joey? Like maybe, you should be looking at that. So listen to your mom. There is no I in team. Don't be the hero. All right. Thank you for watching. We wanted to make sure that you subscribe, like, comment, and share. We don't want you to miss out on any of our future episodes. And we just want to say bye for now, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.